Any comprehensive examination of the leadership required for success in today's world must take a strong look at the disruptive environment of surprises and challenges that all of us are experiencing. This disruptive environment seems to be the new norm, a norm within which all individuals, organizations, communities, and nations find they have to operate in order to survive. Our networked society, now and into the future, will only accentuate the need for changes and transformations on a global scale. This will be the focus of my comments today. At a time when all managers and organizations have to continuously deal with unexpected problems, for example, with unexpected new technologies, such as contributions from robots and artificial intelligence, new demands from new product and service offerings, new demands from new local and multinational customers, and new digital and online connections. These employees have to extend their time horizons for planning and innovating way beyond their traditional practices. There are a number of tools and concepts that innovative organizations need to learn to harness. In other programs, I have focused on issues like building agility and flexibility around sensitivity to the disruptions that seem to always confront us. The nature of the disruptions is always changing and advancing. So our abilities to react have also needed to advance as well. McKinsey & Company, one of the world's largest and most influential management consulting firms, reported during the winter of 2019 to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, that their work with companies has clearly shown them that this constant disruption is intensifying, that the gulf between those embracing change and those falling behind is growing, and that pretty much everywhere countries and economies are moving toward greater inclusivity. All of these trends are creating long-term global challenges for all managers. Indeed, this new longer-term focus requires a search for global knowledge and ideas which are increasingly becoming the key to productivity and future success for all organizations. It involves being creative and curious and learning from individuals and organizations from all over the world. Organizations must now strive to focus longer term more than ever, not with 5-year horizons, but with horizons of 20 or more years. They must become long-term organizations. Increasingly, these disruptive times call for transformational leaders who have a knack for addressing complex problems. We live in an age of even accelerating disruption. Every organization is facing up to the profound changes wrought by digitization. Industry boundaries are becoming permeable. Data, algorithms, and artificial intelligence are changing the nature of forecasting, decision-making, and the workplace itself. I am constantly looking for new ideas and strategies that are being practiced by the world's most successful organizations and leaders. It never ceases to amaze me that there seems to be no end to such ideas and strategies from which we can all learn. In this presentation, I will focus on 2 particular individual and organizational practices that enable the innovation and agility necessary for the transformations required for ongoing success in today's disruptive environments. These practices are curiosity and creativity, both of which have not received much attention in the past. Over the many years that I have presented in this ITC program, I have typically begun with an outline of the many sources of disruption and change that require all individuals and organizations to adapt to their changing environments. We are all confronted with the need for constant adaptation. But you're probably thinking about radical changes, such as, for example, new industrial platforms, or geopolitical shifts, or global competition, or changing consumer demands, all of which are reshaping our world. We face upstart competitors with high valuations who are encroaching on our businesses, and activist investors looking for targets to acquire. Meanwhile, we also have our own aspirations for our organizations: to be profitable innovators, to be able to seize opportunities, to lead and dominate our industries, to attract highly committed talent, and to carve out socially responsible roles in which our employees and organizations can make a difference. You probably also want to clear away the deadwood in your existing systems, your existing practices, structures, technologies, and cultural habits that hold your company back. The conventional response is usually a transformation initiative of some sort. For example, a top-down restructuring, accompanied by across-the-board cost-cutting, or a technological reboot, or some re-engineering. If so, you realize how difficult it is for these sorts of efforts to succeed. These efforts tend to come in late and over budget, leaving the organization tired, often demoralized, and usually not much changed. They usually don't take into account the new kinds of leverage that have emerged in the last 10 years or so. New networks, new data gathering and analysis tools and approaches, and new ways of organizing and interpreting knowledge. Successful transformations may be relatively rare, but they do exist, which shows that your efforts have the possibility to succeed as well. In this presentation, I hope to give you some ideas about how you can be more likely to make your transformation efforts successful. A transformation in this context is a major shift in an organization's capabilities and identity so that it can deliver valuable results relevant to its purposes that it couldn't master before. It doesn't necessarily involve a single major initiative, though it could. But the hope is that the company will develop an ongoing mastery of the basic ability to change, in which adaptability feels natural to leaders and managers as well as to employees. A culture conducive to innovation is not only good for a company's bottom line, it also is something that both leaders and employees value in their organizations. They take pride in being able to make their change efforts work. So it is worth the effort and is what the rest of my remarks today will involve. Efforts of this sort can take place on a large or small scale. They can involve the front, middle, or back office. They can be conducted by any type of organization, from a startup to a global enterprise, and they should affect every aspect of your organization's structure, including such functions as innovation, finance, marketing, sales, human resources, and operations. At any scale, transformations tend to require cultural shifts and highly engaged managers and leaders who take control of their organization's future in these 4 ways. They create a strategic identity, a single desirable future for the enterprise, and focus everybody's efforts on achieving it. They focus on trust. They develop ways to attract and deserve the commitment of everyone related to the organization, particularly customers and employees. They master the move from testing new practices in an intensive, experimental, startup manner, then pick the approaches that work and rapidly implement them throughout the larger system. Yet they keep the best of their past, divesting the rest for advantage, using the income to fund future transformation efforts. Nevertheless, the hard truth about innovative cultures is that creativity can be messy. It needs discipline and leadership. There are 5 keys to learning the required skills to deliver the necessary creativity and innovation in order to successfully carry out desired transformations. First, managers must develop a tolerance for failure, but not a tolerance for incompetence. These are different concepts. A willingness to experiment, seeking improvement, does not mean working like some third-rate abstract painter who randomly throws paint at a canvas. This is a key component of the creativity desired from employees. They must recognize that they need not fear making mistakes or doing something wrong. As Thomas Watson, founder of IBM, used to point out, the cost of a mistake wasn't what was important. It was what was learned that was important. Employees need to be smart about their experimentation. Secondly, managers must exhibit a willingness to encourage their employees to experiment while insisting that they be highly disciplined while they try new ideas. Third, managers must practice what I refer to as psychological safety in their treatment toward their employees, yet remain brutally candid in their evaluations of new employee ideas. Employees need to feel safe from criticism, yet seek it in order to make the improvements they seek. Fourth, managers must be willing to collaborate with employees with new ideas and innovations, yet insist on and require individual accountability. And fifth, managers must sustain equal yet strong leadership for all employees. So, how does one go about creating transformation? Here are some basic ideas. First, be prepared for disruption. Look for it and expect it when it arrives, as it will. Second, stay agile. Be willing to change the way you do things and the efforts and procedures you use. And third, sustain curiosity about standard procedures, always looking for ways to do things better. There are many benefits of curiosity. Employees and managers who are curious make fewer decision-making errors, make more innovation and positive changes in both creative and non-creative jobs, experience reduced group conflict, and experience more open communication and better team performance. When we are curious, we view tough situations more creatively and have fewer defensive reactions to stress. Since curiosity is so important and contributes so heavily to high performance, here are 5 ways to bolster curiosity within your organization. Hire employees based on their levels of assessed curiosity. Evaluate possible new employees on the basis of stories they can tell about innovations they championed. Managers need to practice and model their own levels of inquisitiveness. Emphasize the importance to employees of developing their own learning goals. Encourage employees to explore and broaden their individual interests. Leaders can stress the value of learning by reacting positively to mediocre ideas that could be springboards to better ideas. And lastly, have why, what if, and how might we days. That is, actually schedule time to model the giving of time devoted to curiosity and creativity. So what typically happens when an organization and its managers devote time and energy to creativity and curiosity? First, what happens is a sensitivity to what is referred to as deprivation sensitivity. This is the recognizing of a gap in knowledge, the filling of which offers relief. This type of curiosity doesn't necessarily feel good, but people who experience it work relentlessly to solve problems. The second dimension is joyous exploration, being consumed with wonder about the fascinating features of their world and their work. The third dimension is social curiosity, talking, listening, and observing others to learn what they are thinking and doing. The fourth dimension is stress tolerance, a willingness to accept and even harness the anxiety associated with novelty. People lacking this ability see information gaps, experience wonder, and are interested in others, but are unlikely to step forward and explore. The fifth dimension is thrill-seeking, being willing to take physical, social, and financial risks to acquire varied, complex, and intense experiences. For people with this capacity, the anxiety of confronting novelty is something to be amplified, not reduced. So the challenge is looking for these dimensions in employees. You want to identify employee experiences that transform curiosity into competence. Here are some ideas of what to look for. Employees who have worked for a number of companies. Employees who have served a greater diversity of customers. Employees who have worked abroad or on multicultural teams. Employees who experienced more business scenarios in more than one company. And managers who have supervised larger teams. Virtually every CEO that major consultants work with is asking the same daunting set of questions. Are my organization's talent practices still relevant? How can we recruit, deploy, and develop people to deliver greater value to customers and do so better than the competition? How can I, the CEO, be sure that I have the right approach to talent and the right human resources to drive the changes we need to make? It requires a distinct set of mindsets. Leaders at talent-driven organizations are as focused on talent as they are on strategy and finance. They make talent considerations an integral part of every major strategic decision. They make sure that their own focus on talent is woven into the fabric of the entire organization. Executives that want to turn their attention to the two most critical aspects of leading a people-first company focus on finding, recruiting, developing, and deploying key talent, and ensuring that talent is truly integral to every major strategic decision across the organization. So plans to innovate or transform practices must be followed closely by ensuring that the necessary high-quality talent is available and assigned to carry out the effort. What the top consultants have found is that talent-driven organizations need a central brain trust, and all that the top consultants have seen argues for it being what is referred to as a G3, consisting of the CEO, CFO, and Chief Human Resources Officer, CHRO, or whichever titles the equivalent persons hold in your organization. Why these three executives, managers in particular? Because deploying financial capital and human capital together is the key to success. As CEO Greg Case of Aon explains, people allocation is as powerful as financial allocation. It is illustrated by Case and his CHR and CFO, who work closely together to make sure the company has the right talent to meet the challenges of the future. Second, the board of directors must also be aligned with the approach and strategies of the G3. And third, focusing on developing its top talent, which, as mentioned earlier, includes identifying potential talent during the hiring process and identifying assignments that develop necessary skills and attitudes for future roles. So let me conclude with 10 principles of leading change management, tools and techniques that will help organizations transform themselves quickly. It used to be the case that top managers, particularly in large organizations, had a simple goal for themselves: stability. No one liked having to constantly react to disruptions. Owners wanted little more than predictable earnings growth. Because so many markets were either closed or undeveloped, managers could deliver on those expectations through annual exercises that offered only modest modifications to annual plans. Prices stayed in check, people stayed in their jobs, life was good. However, using these 10 ideas as a systematic, comprehensive framework, managers and directors can learn and understand what to expect, how to manage their own personal changes, and how to engage their entire organizations in the process of change. Number 1, address the human side systematically. Number 2, start at the top. Number 3, involve every layer and everybody. Number 4, make the formal case. That is, put it in writing. Number 5, create ownership for all employees. Number 6, communicate and communicate and communicate the message. Number 7, assess the cultural landscape. Number 8, then address culture explicitly, making changes as necessary. Number 9, prepare for the unexpected. And number 10, speak to the individual and to each individual. Most managers contemplating change know that people matter. It can be all too tempting, however, to dwell on the plans and processes which don't talk back and don't respond emotionally, rather than face up to the more difficult and more critical human issues. But mastering the soft side of change management needn't be a mystery. Indeed, it should be a first priority. The tension between next-gen expectations, those of young people, and corporate realities can be brutal, but leaders who can't or don't adapt are often finding their managing models challenged. This is a global phenomenon, particularly acute in developing economies. The authors of Thinking the Unthinkable set out to determine why so many managers in government, business, and non-governmental organizations were struggling with the pace of disruption to institutional, business, and political life. The main conclusion was that the conformity, defined as adhering to conventional wisdom, that gets leaders to the top, often disqualifies them from grasping the scale and nature of disruption. Managers tend to rise through the ranks, listening and conforming to others who are like them. But disruption requires precisely the opposite. It needs managers who think and plan for unthinkables. In order to do this, it is necessary to have a clear purpose and to embrace diversity, inclusivity, and new behaviors, which will help managers understand and anticipate the impact of disruption. Various studies by Gowing and Langdon showed that leaders who experiment with radical options for adaptive problem solving make new discoveries that allow them to flourish. They can adapt along with the scale of the disruption. The challenge is even more acute in a world of digital transformation. Artificial intelligence and biotech are bringing huge changes to society. For leaders, a new clarity of purpose and a moral compass is essential, as is an understanding that huge new disruptions are the hallmark of the new normal. What we are experiencing is a new age of unthinkables. We will have to cope with and thrive on change to survive. Hopefully, I have provided you in this presentation with ways to increase your creativity and curiosity so as to stay ahead of your unthinkables.